saving and cost optimization is a very integral part of Cloud FinOps. But it is not the only thing. Go after the low hanging fruits. Because if you are able to show value, then you get that belief from the top management.
Welcome to FinOps in Action. I'm your host, Taylor Hauk. Each week, I'll sit down with FinOps experts to explore the toughest challenges between FinOps and engineering. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that actually drive action. Hello, and welcome to another episode of FinOps in Action. I am super excited to be talking to today's guest. He is an expert in the worlds of cloud capacity management and FinOps, with over a decade's experience managing workloads across AWS, Google, and Oracle clouds. It's rare to meet someone with such a deep infrastructure and technical background that's also an expert in the cultural aspect of FinOps. He's a seasoned presenter and speaker, leading talks on FinOps and cloud infrastructure at local meetups and conferences. Head of FinOps at Avaloq. Welcome to the show, Rohit Mishra.
Good morning. I really appreciate the invitation and thank you so much for such a nice intro.
Absolutely, Rohit. I'm super excited to chat with you. You have a lot of really interesting experience that I'm excited to dive into. I guess let's start here. You've been doing FinOps for a while now. What's something that you got wrong early in your FinOps journey?
Okay, so how much time do we have? Because I can go on, but yeah. So I would, if I have to put in one line, the one thing which I got wrong, I would say trying to do everything and going in with this attitude that I understand everything. And what I actually mean by that is I come from an infra background, and we all have this attitude that, okay, I understand my virtual machines, I understand my storage, I understand the application which is hosted on it. So when I was doing this for the first time and I used to go to talk to the infra team, I used to think that, okay, I know what is the best. I know if we want to optimize, these are the top 5 things which we have to do. So I used to go to them, give them those action items, and then hope that they are just going to do it from top to bottom. And we know that it doesn't work that way, right? So now the hindsight is 2020. So if I have to go back and change one thing, I would like to get this understanding that, FinOps is about the support and understanding amongst different teams, whether it is architects, your operations, your application, your finance team. So we should first try to get an complete understanding of what is the application, which are the business volumes which are getting uh, impacted, which are the key metrics, which are the key KPIs. Try to understand as much as possible and learn from these various teams, and then come up with the action items so that all those different teams also feel that they are part of the process, and it's not something like someone is coming from outside and giving them orders. So yeah, that is one thing which I feel I when I was in my year one, this is the one big mistake which I did.
So Rohit, I mean, you come from an infrastructure and capacity planning background. So when you came into FinOps, I think a lot of people, when they come into FinOps, they're either from finance, right, or operations, and they don't have that deep understanding of the trade-offs that you need, the trade-off decisions you need to make as it pertains to your cloud infrastructure. You came in, you did have that perspective. How did you kind of approach that and work with these different teams to, help them, enable them to make the decisions when you already had perhaps some of the knowledge to even do it yourself?
Yes. So when my first job, it was a Unix admin. So I started from the very basic, like doing the very technical basic jobs on a Unix host. So I did understand the infra part, and when I was doing, but I didn't had a very good understanding of, as to say, the domain information. So when I started working with the teams, my first goal was, okay, whatever is happening on the infra side, it there is a one-to-one link with the application, as in the business volumes which are coming in. So if you are just going to take a look at, say, what is the maximum CPU, or what is the maximum RAM which is used, that gives you an incomplete picture. So what I even do now is first try to understand the application part, link both of them. And also, I think one of the very understated part in the FinOps is the soft skills. And when I say about the soft skills, I don't just mean the punctuations or the English part, but basically speaking the language which the engineer understands. Suppose if I go to him and say, okay, this is a cost, he might not, because it doesn't have that visibility into the cost. It is something which doesn't matter to him that much. But if I tell him how the cost links to the one CPU which on his VM, and if he's wasting that CPU, how it impacts the cost, give him that information, then uh, personally found out that they bought into it immediately. So these are the two things which I do now very often. First, try to get the link between the business volumes metrics and the infra, and then when you go to the teams, each team have their own mandate. So speak to them in language which they understand, which would be very different for an infra person to a finance person to an architect. And once, if we are able to master this, then I've seen that this entire journey becomes very smooth.
Who are all the teams, Rohit, that you collaborate with, like along this FinOps journey? Like, who are the key personas in your opinion?
uh, First of all is the your top management, because FinOps starts with the management buy-in. If your management is not 100% convinced about the value and the benefit that FinOps team is going to come with, it is not going to work. So the first thing is to convince or have your manager that belief and trust that whatever work we are doing in the FinOps, it is going to add a business value. It is very important that you have the infra team on your side, because infra team is a team actually going to execute the actions. So infra team for sure. Then the application team, because they understand the application, they understand the in and out. I might see something, say JVM, and I might feel, okay, it is very oversized, but maybe that much is required to at the stepping time. So there are different things about a particular application which only an application team will understand. And then you have your architects, because architects are at the start, and they are the design choice which they are going to make is going to affect the entire infra's setup. And then the last and the least is the finance team, because we still have so many things which are still controlled by the finance team, as in, suppose if you have to actually pay the monthly bill of the crowd, that is still controlled by them. If you are making a midterm plan, or if you are making a budget estimation, in all those things you do have the finance guy. So your management, the architects, the infra, the application, and the finance team, I feel these five teams are at the core at what we do, and we need to have those governance calls with them, so that this entire process, it becomes much more streamlined.
I'm curious if you have any examples of like times or projects in which you needed the input from maybe not all of the stakeholders, but at least some of them, and working together as a team drove to a measurable outcome. Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, so I can give you an example. So I work a lot in Oracle Cloud. So in the and we have this thing where we try to stop the VMs on, say, on a weekly basis, right? And we all know, if it is a non prod environment, the virtual machines can be stopped on the weekends. But even though we had the automation to do it, it was a very huge pain point for us because you need different sign offs from different teams. So we used to go to the infra team and say, okay, see, on the weekend it is all 10%. Then why can't we just stop the VMs? And they used to say, okay, this is not in our hand. If you want to do it, we can do it, but please go and ask first the architects. So I think this was a one case where we set up those governance calls. We got the architects in, we got the finance in, we got the sales team in, and instead of just solving it for one customer, we thought, okay, why not let's put this in our scheme of things, as in it becomes a mandate for all the uh, customers which we have. And then after that, whenever any business case is made, so the sales team, they work on a business case, and that is sold to the client. And we convince the architect, okay, if we can add this point, if it is a non-prod environment, if we say if it is an SIT environment, the VMs have to be up only 10 hours for five days. If it is an acceptance environment, maybe you also need to do some test on the weekend, but it can be only 8 hours on the weekend. So what we found, if once we were able to put this in the business case itself, and this was a mandate coming from the architects to the infra teams, that issue, which was a huge pain point for us, it was solved automatically. So from then on, whenever any new environment was set, this particular mandate, it was ingrained into it. So the team had to do the setup in such a way, and we have lots of automation for it. We use some if you might have heard about cloud custodian tool. We also use that tool. We build the functions in, and then we found, yeah, so then all those emails which we had to send to all the teams saying, okay, stop this, that entire work was gone. And all, so i I would say this was made possible because we were able to get in lots of teams, the architects, the sales, the infra, the top management. So this is an example where if all the teams, they work in sync with a common goal, and if we are able to give them the uh, data points on the amount of savings this particular action is going to get in, that thing gets done.
It reminds me of this term that, we've heard a lot recently in FinOps, right? And that term is shifting left. How do you think about, like, what does shifting left mean to you? And how do you actually put that in practice? I think this might have been a perfect example of it.
Yeah, sort of, yes. We always hear so many buzzwords, and after a few months, we feel that, okay, that it was just a fad. It is not something it very meaningful. But I truly feel that the shifting left is something which is going to be a very very important in the FinOps context. It's also, say after in 2030, if we are going to take a turn back and see about shifting left, it is going to be a very important turning point in how FinOps is perceived amongst different teams, and also how FinOps is actually done. So I would give you a long answer. So try to think, when most of the sales team or most of the finance team, when they hear that your company wants to go to the cloud, everyone thinks it is cheap. And but after the few months, they are in for a shock, because then they see that, okay, the bills are much way above what we estimated. And then they call in our team, they call in the FinOps team, everyone is in a panic, and they ask us to reduce the cost. And I would say this is still a reactive mode. Once we see an issue has happened, then we are trying to solve that issue. Now, if you want to take one step earlier, what you can automate lots of things. So say if you have an unattached volumes, you have built in those lambda functions or other functions which are going to do that housekeeping. So I would say, but it is still a reactive thing where a volume has become unattached and then you are taking an action on it. So maybe it is not completely on the right, but it is still at the center. And but when we're talking about the shifting left, we are saying why, how to solve that issue in a way that issue doesn't happen in the first place. So, and most of these things are happening because we are not trying to do anything at the source. So when we say shift left, we go at the source. And when we say source, it is the architects. So the way the things are being designed, we try to give our input at that place, so so that most of the wastage doesn't happen at all, and we save our time from trying to solve that wastage. So an example of it is again Oracle Cloud. So there is a feature. I think it's there in every cloud. There is a virtual vault where you store the keys. And now in Oracle Cloud, a virtual private vault is a very expensive thing. Uh, until few years back, what was happening was that there were multiple teams were having their own one vault. So if you had like 20 teams, each team used to go and start a vault of their own, and so the amount of bill was like 20 times. Now you don't need this. So at the one of option is you send an email to those 20 teams, try to follow up, half of them will not answer, and you waste your time. So if I take this example and say, if you want to shift left, you go to the architects, and this is what we did at Avaloq. We said, okay, from an architectural design point of view, you cannot have more than one vault. You can only have one vault, like a central resource. All the teams can use it. Of course, you have different ways of how you can maintain isolation inside it. For suppose if you want that each team should have their own compartments, you have ways to do it, and this is what we did. So now we have just one vault for all the teams, and they all store the keys in it. So now automatically your cost went down from 20 to 1. And for this, we didn't have to send out 20 emails to all the teams. So if we are able to convince the architect that at the source itself we are able to design our infra in a way where the FinOps or the optimization principles are incorporated, this is a perfect example of shifting left.
As FinOps gets continue to be shifted left, right? You're earlier in the design process and you're involved in making these decisions before you even perhaps deploy these applications. How do you think about how FinOps is justified as a practice when perhaps cost savings isn't the number one metric that you're impacting?
So if I understand the question, it is mostly okay. If our cost is more or less stable, how do we justify a FinOps team, right?
Yeah, essentially, if we're shifting left in the design process and we're helping design these applications in a cost efficient way from day one, right? There is perhaps less opportunity to optimize later. I think that a lot of, in my experience, a lot of FinOps teams, they justify their existence through cost avoidance and cost savings, through finding inefficient architectures, recommending a new path, taking that path, and showing the direct cost savings as a result of that action. But as we get more advanced and we're introducing this FinOps aware, cost aware mindset early in your architecture reviews and in the design of these applications, we're not going to have that metric anymore. How do you think about that?
So yeah, I think it's a fantastic question, right? And this is a question which which is on mind of lots of FinOps practitioners, right? Okay, what if our bill is completely stable? Then do we need FinOps at all? So from my context, the answer to this question is that cost saving and cost optimization is a very integral part of Cloud FinOps, but it is not the only thing. So Cloud FinOps is a very large umbrella under which one of the things which we do is savings and optimization. So and if we are not doing it, then we have to expand our coverage, right? So we have to go to the teams, we have to go to our management and make sure that we as FinOps team, we also take other things into our area. And when I say that, so say, let's start with an example of invoice management. So finance team might still be paying the monthly bill which you get, but you do have cases where in a bill you get, say amount is 100K. Now that 100K is used by 10 teams. So then how then you distribute that amount amongst different teams? So you use the principles of cost reporting, the show back, charge back. But in the end, basically what you are doing is a technical cost allocation. And you are able to do it because you have that bird's view. You understand the what the different teams are doing, and you also understand the infra. So you are not a completely non-tech person, right? So that technical cost allocation where you understand, okay, as I said about the wall, there might be a single resource which might be used by multiple teams, and how do you distribute that shared cost? And I've also seen lots of teams also use the tax for this cost distribution. Now, the tax in the entire company, it has to be a standard. It cannot be like each team have their own tag keys. So now, which team defines those tag keys? What should be the common set of tags? It might be for your division, it might be for your particular account, it might be for your particular SAP code, but what are those tag keys which everyone else has to use, and the entire tag governance part? So this is also a very, very big task and very important feature which is part of the Cloud FinOps, right? And then, as I said, the finance team, they make the MTPs, or you can call the annual plans, where they're doing the budget estimation, because the FinOps team has the CUR reports and all the focus reports, and we have all the historical data. So that input which goes to the finance team, based on which the estim- estimates are made, the budget forecasts are made, that is also a big area where we have to give our input. And then the last point, when we talk about the cloud planning, right? So I talked about the architects. It is sort of shifting left, but also when architects have their own sizing models where they say, okay, say this application one, it is hosted on this particular VM, you need to start with CPUs. And that input might be coming from some tests which have been done. But now, as the FinOps team, we have the data. When the customer goes live, we have all the metrics, we have the monitoring data. We have to analyze that data, find patterns into it, and then go back to the architects and ask them to update their sizing models. So that so it is sort of shifting left, but it is not something which you do only once.
I
Month by month, you have to observe this. Apart from the cost savings, the Cloud FinOps team should also do cost allocation, the tag governance, capacity planning, budget estimation, forecasting, and all these things should be part of the Cloud FinOps team.
Yeah, and there really is so much work to be done, and I agree with that. But that last point you were making resonated so much with me, and that's where I thought you were actually going to go initially, right? Because essentially, even if you shift all of your, FinOps mindset and this kind of efficiency architect point of view, or what Warner Vogel from AWS would call the frugal architect, right? This mindset when you're building applications to do it in a cost-aware way. Even if you do that on day one, things are going to change, right? And these billing models, like the billing models for these services, are so complex with so many different configuration options. And each configuration may be the cost optimal for a specific scenario. And oftentimes I've seen you can make an assumption as to what your utilization rates are going to be or how this application is going to get used. But even if you make the best assumption with all the available data on day one, on day 30, 60, 90, things might be different. In which case, even if you made the most cost optimal decision on day one, there's now been a drift. And now there actually may be an opportunity to make a change, even if you were considering all the factors early on. That's how I see it.
Absolutely, and you have hit the nail on the head. This is the thing, right? What we think on the day one, the estimates which we do, the things don't turn out that way very often, because if you talk about the infra team, I won't say it is their fault, but their main aim is to solve an issue. So say as soon as they are hit with an issue, and they know that okay, if I add 10 more CPUs to it, the issue would get solved. They won't try to do the housekeeping or try to do the RCA, because in the cloud it is so easy.
Yeah, by the way, this is the crucial kind of building blocks for this new wave in FinOps that we're starting to see emerge that people are calling cloud efficiency posture management, right? And it's this idea that your how efficient your cloud is running is a posture that can change over time.
You know,
On one day, you might have a strong efficiency posture and be running in an efficient way, but things could change that leads to degradation, and all of a sudden you're less efficient. But the challenge is that at enterprise scale, it's very difficult to stay on top of all of these changes as they're happening in real time, and that's where software systems are needed, right? And to put checks in place. I mean, you talked to how you're doing some of that internally at Avaloq. I'm curious, like how are you keeping track of the efficiency of your architecture and cloud resources in an at scale enterprise environment where it's too big for Rohit to be looking at things in the GUI by himself?
yeah. So say, as you know, Avaloq is in the banking domain, very strict uh, regulations, so I cannot share much. But what I would say, yeah. So over period of time, we first of all, we, as I said multiple times, right, understand the application. What are the basic KPIs or important KPIs by which you can define a particular application, which might, for starting from app one to app two, that might be completely, they might not be the same, So what is that particular unit metrics which makes sense for the particular application? We try to define that. Then we try to automate it, that on, okay, on a monthly basis you get that data. You are not just looking at the infra metric, but you're trying to find out the business value out of it. So that is one way we try to see. And if we see that okay, the business value has started to go down a bit, then it means okay, this is the time we need to go in and take some action and validate the things. And also, one more thing, I think I missed that point in your question, was when we're also talking about putting these guardrails, right? Where okay, we are trying to automate the things. We are not trying to make things more complex for the engineers. We are just trying to help them as much as possible. Also, we have seen that we had certain cases where we know there is a wastage, and our, as you said, and by the way, I love this term, efficiency posture. It is a very, I'm going to use this a lot from now. So where we have seen that there is a wastage, we have disabled the console access. Now if you want to start any virtual machine, you have to use the code only. And then even in the code for certain applications, we have put things like, when an engineer comes and he or she wants to start a machine, they have to give a time that they, because it is a test, they need it for 8 hours, or they need it for 1 day or 5 days. So these are some of the ways where we try to make sure that uh, in terms of effi- we are not going way off the mark. We try to make it as efficient as possible in a way that it is to be used when it is really required. And then on the top of it, we have the KPIs for different applications.
Yeah, absolutely, Rohit. Shifting gears just slightly here. I'm curious when you think about all these best practices and you're operating FinOps at a fairly mature phase, frankly. What parts of this job, what parts of our industry do you think are perhaps underappreciated or underdeveloped? Like if you were to look ahead 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, where do you think we'll see the biggest changes in the way that FinOps teams are operating?
Yeah. So, in terms of a big org, I would say now we are not just Avaloq, but overall. And as you said, FinOps is still a very niche field. So if you compare, say, where we were in 2024, we have come a long way. So I'm sure as we go ahead, there are more things which are going to be added to it. In terms of what is being done well and not done well, I I will say that in terms of the reporting part, we have come very far, and I think the focus has helped a lot, and especially in a multi-cloud setup, right? With the we now we have more of the standardized columns and all. So in terms of the showback, in terms of the chargeback, in terms of the tags, I feel that these are the things which we are doing very well as of now, and also in terms
As an industry,
as an industry. Yeah.
I agree. What I say to people is if reporting and visibility is not a solved problem,
Mm.
it is at the very least a very solvable problem
Yeah.
for any company. I mean, where we are with technology and BI solutions, it's like literally just grab your billing files, build a data pipeline, and pop it into a BI platform, and you can get your cost visibility wrangled in a very short period of time. You don't need too much fancy tooling on top of it.
The step one, if you want to optimize, is the cost should be visible, and visible not just to us but to everyone. So as you said, yeah, the cost visibility is the number one thing. But yeah, it is something which we are doing very well as of now. I would say one thing which we need to do more is, as I said, shifting left, but in terms of get in the calls more, like get into the calls with the architects, get into the calls with the application teams, because I still feel that at many places FinOps is still considered more of a governance function, and it is a governance function, right? But it can add so much more value, because we understand, because we have that bird's view, we understand the infra, we understand the application. So if we start going into those architectural calls where the decision making is done, where the designs are being built, we are going to add so much more value to it. But I don't see that happening a lot. So I think that is one thing which is still very underdeveloped. But I hope that, yeah, in say if we do the same podcast after 12 months, I would hope to say, okay, now this is also something which we are doing very well.
One thing that's interesting is that in order to fit well into those meetings with the architects, with the application teams, it takes a specific kind of FinOps persona, right? Not everyone with FinOps in their title is capable of providing value in those discussions. And I think that upskilling our industry to be to, to have the right blend of skills to handle FinOps in 2026 and beyond is also really important. And Rohit, we're coming close to a close on our time for today, and I wanted to have the opportunity to ask you one question in specific because we get a lot of listeners who are earlier on in their FinOps journey than you are. So I want to give you the opportunity to speak to them. Do you have any advice or any words of wisdom from your experience that you would share with someone early on in their FinOps journey? Perhaps something that you wish you had heard sooner or earlier in your journey yourself.
Yes. So the one advice which I would give to someone who is at a very early stage is go after the low hanging fruits. Because if you are able to show value, then you get that belief from the top management. And because in the FinOps, the management buy-in is the most important thing. So when I was in my first month, I used to go to the AWS console and manually remove the volume. So don't try to automate and make fancy things on the first day. Just go after the low hanging fruits, then go to your management and show it to them that okay, these are the savings which we have brought. And then once you get that buy-in, then use it to build on its top. Then you try to automate, and then you try to do the fancy stuff. But yeah, on the day one, first month, it is very important to get some actual savings done and show it to your management.
I love that advice, and I think that it's so important because of how tangible the value at FinOps can be early on. Like you literally can go out and in a week show up with, depending on the skill of your environment, hundreds of thousands of dollars of impact, right? And that gets people excited and gets the ball rolling for you to then tackle the bigger and more challenging issues that are going to present to you once you get through the kind of the layer of low hanging fruit of easy wins, so to speak. Rohit, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. I think everyone listening has a lot to learn from you and your journey. Before we wrap, I know that your entire life does not revolve around FinOps. I'm curious. I don't know. What do you do for fun outside of work?
So I have a 2.5 years old baby boy. So yeah, and now most of my time goes in that. When as soon as I come home, he's waiting at the door. So if I'm inside the home, I cannot work, I cannot watch TV, I cannot do anything. I have to be with him. So yeah, that takes lots of my time. But yeah, I love watching sports, football, tennis. These are two sports which I watch a lot.
Who are your teams?
I mostly watch English League, English Premier League. So my favorite team is Chelsea. I've been following them from 1998. So yeah, and you must be knowing as of now the Australian Open is also ongoing. So yeah, I wake up in the mornings and also try to watch that as much as possible. And I'm very still very old fashioned, so when I wake up in the morning, I still want my newspaper in hand. So I take time to go through the newspapers, then I go to office, come back, play with my kid, and then try to watch some sports. So yeah, this is my very boring life. Yeah.
I don't think that's so boring. I think getting off the screens and sticking to a real newspaper is actually something that more people should be doing. Rohit, if anyone's listening that is newer to FinOps, capacity planning, who is perhaps a Chelsea fan and they want to reach you, where should they find you?
Yeah, so I think I will share my L- LinkedIn address, and you can add that in the text. So I try to I do get lots of messages. I try to answer as much of them as possible, and I will also give my email ID. So yeah, these are the two mediums where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. I really appreciated having you on as a guest. This has been an amazing show. I think all of our audience will come away with something to learn from you. And man, it was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you again. And until next time. That wraps up another episode of FinOps in Action. Thank you for joining. For show notes and more, please visit finopsinaction.com. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that actually drive action.